Hi everyone. Today in this video we will discuss the new chapter, that is thermodynamics. So what is meant by thermodynamics? So from the word itself you can get an idea that it is something related to heat. Thermal means something related to heat. So it is the branch of science which deals with heat and temperature and interconversion of heat energy and other forms of energy. That branch is known as thermodynamics. From that, some important topics that we are going to discuss here. Okay. So first of all, we will discuss what is meant by thermodynamic state variables. So in chemistry, already you might have studied what is meant by system and surroundings. No? What is meant by that you might have studied. So here we are going to discuss about thermodynamic state variables. Thermodynamic state variables are the macroscopic quantities which determine the thermodynamic equilibrium state of a system. So they are the macroscopic quantities. What is the specialty of those macroscopic quantities? That can, with the help of those variables, we can determine the equilibrium state of a system. Okay. For example, pressure, volume, temperature, mass, internal energy are the thermodynamic state variables. Among that first four, it is clear to you what is meant by pressure, volume, temperature and mass. No need to explain. Internal energy, that we will discuss in this video. Okay. So these are the thermodynamic state variables. Okay. So by knowing these clearly, what is the specialty, we can get an idea about the system. No. These variables can tell us the position or the condition of any gas at that particular time. What is the position? What is the condition of a system which contains, for example, gas in a cylinder or whatever it is. So we can get an idea, we can get clearly an idea about the position or the condition of any gas, okay, at a particular time. That is a specialty of these thermodynamic state variables. Okay. This is very important. A system not in equilibrium cannot be described by state variables. These are known as state variables or thermodynamic variables directly, or state variables also we can say. So a system which is in equilibrium only can be described by state variables. If it is not in equilibrium, cannot be described by state variables. It means that macroscopic variables are changing with time and they are not constant. For example, if the system is not in equilibrium, what happens? Pressure may be changing, volume may be changing, temperature, all those one or two or all may be changing with time. So they are not constant. So we cannot describe the state of a system which is not in equilibrium. For example, the partition in the box is suddenly removed, leading to free expansion of the gas. Okay, there is a partition, okay, and that partition we are removing and the gas is allowed to expand freely. So what happens? There will be variation in volume, no, temperature or according to whatever it is, it will be changed. Second one, a mixture of gases undergoing an explosive chemical reaction. So a mixture of gas, if it undergoes a chemical reaction, what happens? In both the case, we can say the gas is not in equilibrium. So with the help of these thermodynamic state variables, we cannot describe the state. Okay. Otherwise, if a system is in thermodynamic equilibrium or if a system is in equilibrium, we can describe the state of the system by these parameters: pressure, volume, temperature, mass, internal energy, and those macroscopic quantities. Macroscopic quantities means which can be measured. Okay. Which can be measured. So those macroscopic quantities are known as thermodynamic state variables. Okay. And now you may have doubt what is meant by this thermodynamic equilibrium, like that it is mentioned. So that here we are going to discuss. So before going to discuss that, we will discuss what is meant by equation of state. So equation of state means it depicts the relationship between the state variables. Okay. It gives a relationship between pressure, mass, volume, density, temperature, all those which can be measured directly or indirectly. So it describes about the state of the matter under given set of physical conditions. under set of physical condition, what is the state or what relation exists between pressure, volume, temperature, and those can be explained by equation of state. Okay. So in the case of an ideal gas, you know the equation of state. What is equation of state? Equation of state is given by PV is equal to nRT, or PV is equal to mu RT. What is P? P stands for pressure, V stands for volume, mu stands for number of moles, R universal gas constant, and T is the temperature. So here P, V and T are state variables. Mu is number of moles. Okay, is it clear? Because P, V and T we can measure directly. So for a fixed amount of gas, we can have two independent variables. Okay, two independent variables. Either we can either volume and temperature or volume and pressure. Automatically, other variable will be dependent variable. So all these three variables cannot be independent at the same time. So this relation is we can say that it is the equation of state for an ideal gas, which is PV is equal to mu RT. So this equation of state means it is a relation which connects the macroscopic variables. Okay. And now here we are going to discuss what is meant by thermal equilibrium and thermodynamic equilibrium. Okay. So first of all we will discuss what is meant by thermal equilibrium. Two systems are said to be in thermal equilibrium with each other if they have the same temperature. Two systems are there, A and B. If we are saying that two systems A and B are there. So we can say A and B are in thermal equilibrium if and only if both A and B are having the same temperature. Okay. So if they are having the same temperature, we can say that it is in thermal equilibrium. But in the case of thermodynamic equilibrium, for a system to be in thermodynamic equilibrium, it should satisfy three conditions, or three types of equilibrium should be attained. First one, so a system is said to be in the state of thermodynamic equilibrium if the macroscopic variables describing the thermodynamic state of the system do not change with time. Okay. So the macroscopic variables means already we discussed pressure, volume, temperature, mass, density, all those should not change. As time changes, if these macroscopic parameters remain same, we can say that system is in thermodynamic equilibrium. So for a system to be in thermodynamic equilibrium, it should satisfy, or three other equilibrium should be satisfied. First one is thermal equilibrium. So before that we will discuss mechanical equilibrium. So what is meant by mechanical equilibrium? There is no unbalanced force in its interior or between the system and the surroundings. So no unbalanced force should be there. Unbalanced force should not be there either inside the system or between the system and the surroundings. So we can say that system will be in mechanical equilibrium. Then in thermal equilibrium, already we discussed, temperature should remain same. So inside the system, all parts should be at the same temperature, and between the system and the surroundings also temperature should be same. Okay. Inside the system temperature should be same in all the parts of the system. Similarly, between outside the system, other than the system, that is known as surroundings. So surroundings temperature also should be equal to the system's temperature. Then we can say it is in thermal equilibrium. And last one is chemical equilibrium. So system does not undergo any spontaneous change. That is, the system suddenly its internal structure should not be changed. That either chemical reaction should not be there, diffusion should not be there. These are some examples of change in the internal structure because of spontaneous some phenomenon. Okay. So the system does not undergo any spontaneous change in its internal structure due to chemical reaction, diffusion, etc. Okay. So if a system satisfies all these equilibrium, that is mechanical equilibrium, thermal equilibrium and chemical equilibrium, we can say that system is in thermodynamic equilibrium. Okay. So we can say that a system is in thermodynamic equilibrium is in thermal equilibrium, but a system is in thermal equilibrium need not be in thermodynamic equilibrium. Why? For thermal equilibrium only one condition, temperature remains same. For other mechanical equilibrium and chemical equilibrium is satisfied, then only that system is in thermodynamic equilibrium. Okay. And now we will discuss zeroth law of thermodynamics. You might have heard about first law of thermodynamics. So before discussing first law of thermodynamics, we will discuss zeroth law of thermodynamics. It's a very simple thing. It states that if two systems A and B are separately in thermal equilibrium with a third system C, then A and B are also in thermal equilibrium with each other. Okay. So what it says, A is in thermal equilibrium with C and B is in thermal equilibrium with C. They are separately in thermal equilibrium. Okay. So what it means, A and C are having same temperature and B and C are having same temperature. So what it shows, A and B are having same temperature, or in other words we can say that A and B are also in thermal equilibrium with each other, and that is known as zeroth law of thermodynamics. And from zeroth law of thermodynamics, the quantity is defined is the temperature. Okay, from zeroth law of thermodynamics we can define a quantity that is known as temperature. Okay, and now we will discuss what is meant by internal energy. The internal energy of a system is the sum of molecular, kinetic and potential energies in the frame of reference relative to which the center of mass of the system is at rest. So we are considering a frame of reference. What's the speciality of that frame of reference? In that, center of mass is at rest. So with respect to that frame of reference, if we are finding the internal energy, so what is that internal energy? Internal energy, it is equal to sum of molecular, kinetic and potential energy. So molecular kinetic energy plus molecular potential energy can be written as internal energy. In the case of ideal gas, in the case of ideal gas, we know that there is no molecular force of attraction. No, there is no intermolecular force of attraction between the molecules. So what happens? Potential energy will not be there. Potential energy arises only because of the intermolecular force of attraction. So in the case of ideal gas, there is no intermolecular force of attraction. So what happens? The internal energy of an ideal gas is wholly, purely kinetic in nature, and it depends only on its temperature. So internal energy depends only on the temperature. So as internal energy increases, what happens? Kinetic energy increases, or in other words we can say that temperature increases. So if a gas is there which is having higher temperature, we can say that its kinetic energy is more, or in other words we can say that its internal energy is more. Okay, this is very important. So internal energy depends only on temperature for an ideal gas. Okay, so in the remaining topics we will discuss only here. We are assuming that for ideal gas, that's why internal energy is purely kinetic and it depends only on its temperature. Okay, so if internal energy increases, we can say that temperature also will be increased. Now, to increase the internal energy, two possibilities are there: either providing heat or we can do work on the system. How? That only we are going to discuss. So here you can see a cylinder is there. Inside the cylinder an ideal gas is taken. That blue color you can see, that ideal gas is taken. That cylinder is connected with a movable piston. Okay. So if you are heating, if you are heating that cylinder, you can see that internal energy will be increased. Why? When you are providing heat energy, no doubt internal energy will be increased. Another way of heat, to increase the internal energy, what we can do? We can move the piston downwards. No, when the piston is moved downwards, work is done on the system, because of which its internal energy increases. No, so two ways by which we can increase the internal energy. One is to place the cylinder over a hot body And second one, push the piston down by raising some weight attached to it. By that way also we can increase the internal energy. Okay, these are the two ways by which we can increase the internal energy. And this is very important. Sign convention. Which are the sign conventions? You might have studied in that, but optics you have studied about sign convention, and here also we are applying some sign convention. No need of by-hearting the sign convention as such, but without knowing the sign convention you cannot solve problems. First one is heat absorbed by a system is positive. If a system is absorbing heat, it is positive, and if a system is giving out heat, it is negative. Similarly, work done by a system is positive. If a system is doing work, it is positive. If work is done on the system, it is negative. Similarly, increase in internal energy is positive and decrease in internal energy is negative. Okay, so these sign conventions you should know. And now we will discuss how to find an expression for the work done during expansion. Okay, we are considering a system. What is that system? It is a gas taken in a cylinder with movable piston. If the gas expands, here you can see that gas is taken in a cylinder with a movable piston. So if the gas expands, what happens? That piston will be moved through a small distance dx. No, and pressure, if P is the pressure at that instant and A is the cross-sectional area of the piston, so force can be written as P into A. No, so work done we can find it as work done is equal to that is small amount of work done. That's why we are writing it as delta W, and that is equal to force into displacement. And what is force? Force can be written as P into A into displacement. Okay, so we can write it as A into displacement, that is A into dx, that can be written as delta V. What is delta V? Area into displacement. No, so we can write this work done can be written as P into delta V. Okay, is it clear? So work done during expansion. If compression is taking place, same amount of work will be done on the system. Here work is done by the system. But it is expanding. No, that gas is expanding. So work is done by the system. And if we are compressing or we are pushing the piston inwards, what happens? We are doing work that is on the system. So in that case also work done, you will get the same value, same expression you will get, but there we have to consider that negative sign. That already we discussed according to sign convention. Okay. Now we will discuss indicator diagram. What is meant by indicator diagram? A graphical representation of the state of system with the help of two thermodynamical variables is called an indicator diagram. So it is a graphical representation. That is with the help of two thermodynamical variables. Either we can use P and V or T and V or P and T. So by using those, if we are representing the state of the system, that is known as indicator diagram. Okay. So here you can see that the first graph, A graph, corresponds to isothermal expansion. Quasi-static, what is meant by quasi-static, that we will discuss. Quasi-static means which takes place very slowly. Okay. Very slow, that is known as quasi-static. So in the case of this is first graph shows the isothermal expansion. So isothermal expansion means temperature is keeping constant, the system, that gas is expanding slowly. So you can say that initially it is at a position A having pressure and volume as P1 V1, and finally it is reaching to the position B having pressure and volume as PF VF. Okay. So the second graph corresponds to isothermal compression. You may but wonder that both the graphs are similar. So you can see the arrow. Okay. So in first case you can see that volume is getting increased. In the second graph you can see that volume is getting decreased. So that corresponds to compression. Okay. Now what is the significance of this indicator diagram? So the main important significance is that the area, if you find the area area under PV diagram. Okay, area under, that is only for PV diagram only, area. Okay, area under PV diagram gives the work done. Okay, either during expansion or compression, not a matter. That is the importance of this PV diagram. The area under the PV diagram is numerically equal to the work done by the system or on the system. Work done by the system will be during expansion, work done on the system will be during compression. And now we will discuss about first law of thermodynamics. Okay, and this first law of thermodynamics is nothing but law of conservation of energy itself. That is, if you are providing heat energy to a system, it can utilize that heat energy in two ways. Which are the two ways? It can increase its own internal energy. No, it can change its own internal energy, or it can do work. That only known as first law of thermodynamics. Okay. If some heat is supplied to a system which is capable of doing work, then the quantity of heat absorbed by the system will be equal to the sum of the increase in its internal energy and the external work done by the system on the surroundings. Okay, so if you are providing heat energy to a system, that system can utilize that energy in two ways, either by changing its internal energy, or it can do work. It can do work on the surroundings. Okay, so work will be done by the system on the surroundings. So these are the two ways by which it can change it can change or it can utilize the heat energy absorbed by it. Okay, is it clear? So this is based on first law of thermodynamics. So mathematical expression, we can see how it can be written. So we can write delta Q is equal to delta U plus delta W. Delta Q stands for the heat energy absorbed. It is the heat supplied to the system by the surroundings. Delta W stands for the work done by the system on the surroundings, and delta U is the change in internal energy of the system. Okay. So based on this, we have to solve problems. So when problems will be solved, you have to remember that sign convention that already we discussed. Okay. Is it clear? So if we are providing heat energy, that heat energy can be utilized in two ways, either to change its internal energy or to do work on the surroundings. And we know that work done can be written as P into delta V, that already we discussed. So we can write first law of thermodynamics like this also, delta Q is equal to delta U plus P delta V. What is P? P stands for the pressure, delta V stands for the change in volume. And now we will discuss different types of processes. First of all, we will discuss what is meant by isothermal process. Iso means constant, thermal means temperature. No. So it is the process in which the temperature remains constant throughout. Throughout the process, temperature remains constant, but other variables may change. Okay. So in the case of ideal gas, we know the equation PV is equal to nRT or mu RT. So if temperature remains constant, what we can write? N is number of moles, R is universal gas constant, T is temperature is constant for isothermal process. So what we can write? PV is equal to constant. No, P into V is equal to constant. This is for equation, ideal gas equation for isothermal process. How we are getting that? Number of moles is constant for a given system, universal gas constant is constant, and temperature already constant. So we can write PV is equal to constant. So when you are solving problems, you have to solve like this also. P1 V1 is equal to P2 V2. Okay. So now we will discuss how the equation, first law of thermodynamics, can be explained or can be written for isothermal process. So in an isothermal expansion, there is no change in the internal energy. Why? Temperature remains constant. Already I told you the internal energy depends only on temperature. Since temperature is constant, there is no change in internal energy. So as there is no change in internal energy, as a result there is no change. As there is no change in temperature, we can say that there is no change in internal energy. So first law of thermodynamics, what we can write? Delta Q, we know that delta Q is equal to delta U plus delta W. and delta U is equal to 0. So what it means? Delta Q is equal to delta W. No. This means that the amount of heat supplied to the system, if you are during an isothermal process, by keeping the temperature constant, if you are providing the heat energy to the system, that heat energy will be completely utilized to do work. Okay. Since there is no variation in temperature, there is no variation in internal energy, whatever may be the heat energy given to a system, that will be completely utilized to do work. Okay. And now we will discuss how to find an expression for the work done during an isothermal process. Already we know the formula, work done, small amount of work done delta W, that can be written as P into delta V, or total work done, how to find? By integrating it. No? So work done is equal to integral 1 to 2 or V1 to V2 P dV. Okay, 1 to 2 not V1 to V2. You have to write it as integral V1 to V2 P dV. Okay, or for an ideal gas we know that PV is equal to nRT, and P can be written as nRT by V. Instead of P we can substitute it as nRT by V. We cannot take P outside the integral. Why? Because P depends on V also. No. So that's why by using ideal gas equation we are substituting P is equal to nRT by V. So when you are substituting, what you will get? Integral V1 to V2 nRT by V dV. Now we can take nRT outside the integral. How? Because during an isothermal process temperature remains constant, N and R are already constants. So nRT into integral V1 to V2. That is very important, not 1 to 2. V1 to V2 dV by V. So if you integrate it, that you will study in next year. If you integrate 1 by V, for all other what we are using the formula integral x raised to n dx, we are writing it as x raised to n plus 1 by n plus 1. But in the case of v raised to minus 1, we cannot use that formula. For that another formula is there, integral v raised to minus 1 dv, or integral dv by v is given by ln v. ln v means natural logarithm. Okay, and if you are applying the limits, what you will get? ln v2 minus ln v1. ln stands for natural logarithm. Okay, ln v2 minus ln v1, or in the case of logarithm there is a rule, log a minus log b can be written as log a by b. So ln v2 minus ln v1 can be written as ln v2 by v1. And if you are converting natural logarithm into base 10, we will get it as work done as 2.303 nRT log V2 by V1. Okay, 2.303 nRT log V2 by V1. What is T? T is temperature, V2 is final volume, V1 is initial volume. Okay. And now we will discuss about adiabatic process. What is meant by adiabatic process? It is a process in which there is no heat flow takes place between the system and the surroundings. System will be completely isolated and there is no interaction, there is no heat flow between the system and the surrounding. Such type of process is known as adiabatic process. For an adiabatic process to take place, we can say that these processes are sudden. Suddenly it will take place, so that it will not get enough time for the exchange of heat energy between the system and surroundings, and the walls of the container will be adiabatic. Adiabatic means it will not allow heat energy. Okay. For an adiabatic process of an ideal gas, PV raised to gamma is equal to constant. In the case of isothermal process, we discussed PV is equal to constant, and for adiabatic process, PV raised to gamma is equal to constant. This is very important relation. And what is gamma? Gamma is the ratio of specific heat capacities Cp and Cv. What is meant by that? That we will discuss. Cp means specific heat, molar specific heat capacity at constant pressure, and Cv stands for the molar specific heat capacity at constant volume, that we will discuss in the coming topics. And P is pressure, V is volume. So PV raised to gamma is equal to constant. That is the relation between pressure and volume. And next slide we will discuss the relation between volume and temperature and pressure and temperature for adiabatic process. Okay. example of adiabatic process is that hot tea in a thermos flask. Why? Because if it is in a flask, it will remain hot as there is no exchange of heat takes place between the system and the surroundings. No. Now we can write from first law of thermodynamics, we can apply to adiabatic process. Delta Q is equal to delta U plus delta W. And what is delta Q? There is no exchange of heat between system and surrounding. So delta Q is equal to 0. So what you can write, delta U plus delta W is equal to 0, or delta U is equal to minus delta W. Okay. So during an adiabatic process, if the system expands, what happens? It uses its own internal energy. No, with the help of internal energy, it expands. And if we are compressing it, what happens? Its internal energy will be increased. Okay, heat energy will not be given out. That is, there will be, whenever work is done on the system, its internal energy increases. And if the system is expanding, what happens? It uses its own internal energy. So automatically internal energy will be decreased. So delta Q will be 0, delta U is equal to minus delta W. That is the significance of minus sign. Okay. Now I told you we discuss the relation between pressure and volume during adiabatic process. Now we will discuss other relation. So PV raised to gamma is equal to constant, already we know. So instead of P we can write it as RT by V. No. How we are writing PV is equal to RT if we are considering 1 mole. So RT by V into V raised to gamma is equal to constant, and R can be taken to that side. So K by R you will get T into V raised to gamma by V, we can write it as V raised to gamma minus 1. So this is another relation, T V raised to gamma minus 1 equal to constant. That is a relation between temperature and volume. Okay. K by R, because K is constant, R is another constant, so K by R is constant. So P V raised to gamma is constant, that is the relation between pressure and volume. T V raised to gamma minus 1 is constant, that is the relation between temperature and volume for adiabatic process. Now we have to find the relation between, what it is left? Relation between pressure and temperature. No. So we are substituting for V. So P into RT by P into RT by P raised to gamma is equal to constant. So what you will get? P raised to 1 divided by P raised to gamma. No. R raised to gamma can be taken to that side into T raised to gamma. No. So P raised to 1 by P raised to gamma can be written as P raised to 1 minus gamma. T raised to gamma is equal to K by R raised to gamma. That is equal to constant. Because K by R raised to K is constant, R raised to gamma is constant. So K by R raised to gamma is constant. So P raised to 1 minus gamma, T raised to gamma is constant. So these three equations are very important. By using these equations, we can solve any problem related to adiabatic process. If one quantity is given, 2 quantities given, we can find the third one. Now we are going to discuss an expression for the work done during adiabatic process. So same way what we discussed in the case of isothermal process, here we are starting small amount of work done, we can write it as P into dV. So total work done can be written as integral V1 to V2 P dV, and we are substituting for P as K V raised to minus gamma, because P V raised to gamma is equal to constant. So instead of P we can write it as K V raised to minus gamma. No? So integral V1 to V2 K V raised to minus gamma dV. K can be taken outside the integral. Integral V1 to V2 V raised to minus gamma dV. If you integrate, what you will get? V raised to minus gamma plus 1 by minus gamma plus 1. No, between the limits V1 to V2. Or we can write it as K into V raised to 1 minus gamma. No, minus gamma plus 1 can be written as 1 minus gamma. No, 1 minus gamma by 1 minus gamma into V1 to V2. And K by 1 minus gamma can be taken outside, because gamma will not depend on V1 and V2, because it is the ratio of specific heat capacities. No. So you can apply the limit. So what you will get? V2 raised to 1 minus gamma, upper limit minus lower limit. So V2 raised to 1 minus gamma minus V1 raised to 1 minus gamma. And K can be taken inside. So 1 by gamma minus 1 into K V1 raised to 1 minus gamma minus K V2 raised to 1 minus gamma. Okay. How we are getting it as, because here in denominator you can see in the previous expression it was written 1 minus gamma. Here we are writing it as gamma minus 1. That's why V1 term came first and V2 term went to second. Okay. And we can write it as P1 V1 raised to gamma is equal to P2 V2 raised to gamma is equal to constant. So that we are substituting. So in the first term we are writing it as P1 V1 raised to gamma, and in second term we are writing it as P2 V2 raised to gamma. So what you will get, 1 by gamma minus 1 into P1 V1. No, V1 raised to gamma and V1 raised to minus gamma will get cancelled. Similarly V2 raised to gamma and V2 raised to minus gamma will get cancelled. So you will get the expression for work done as 1 by gamma minus 1 into P1 V1 minus P2 V2. Okay. So in the second last expression also it is not 1 minus gamma, it is gamma minus 1 itself. Okay. So the work done during adiabatic process we can write it as P1 V1 minus P2 V2 divided by gamma minus 1. And we can represent that in terms of temperature also. How we know that PV is equal to nRT? No. So instead of P1 V1 we can write it as nRT1 and P2 V2 can be written as nRT2. So what you will get, nR can be taken common. So work done can be written as nR into T1 minus T2 by gamma minus 1. Okay. So either if depending on the problem, if it is given in terms of pressure and volume you can use the first formula. If it is given in terms of temperature, you can use the last formula. Gamma is the ratio of specific heat capacities, N is the number of moles, R is universal gas constant, T1 is initial temperature and T2 is final temperature. Now we will discuss about isochoric process. So isochoric process means volume is constant. For an isochoric process, volume will remain constant, other parameters will change. So if volume is constant, work is done, work will be done on the system or by the system. No. So the heat energy will be completely utilized to change its internal energy. No. So from first law of thermodynamics we can write delta Q is equal to delta U plus delta W. Delta W is 0. So the heat energy will be completely utilized to increase its internal energy. No. Heat supplied to the system will be utilized completely to change its internal energy and the temperature of the system. Now we will discuss about isobaric process. It is the process in which pressure remains constant. Okay, pressure will be constant, all other parameters will change. So we can write the expression of work done as work done is equal to P into delta V or P into final volume minus initial volume V2 minus V1. And that can be written as nR into T2 minus T1. No, mu R or nR, where mu is, what is mu? Number of moles. Okay. So from first law of thermodynamics we know delta Q is equal to delta U plus delta W, or delta Q is equal to delta U plus mu R into T2 minus T1. So here in isobaric process, if we are providing heat energy, for both purposes it will be used to variation in its internal energy and to do work. Okay. Now we will discuss about cyclic process. A process in which the system will come back to its initial state. It will start from one state and it will go through various processes. Finally, it comes back to the same state. The system started from point 1. It went through series of processes, reached its final position 2, and then it comes back to its initial position. So in that case, what happens? There is no change in internal energy. See, why there is no change in internal energy? System is starting from one position, finally it comes back to the same position. So there is no change in internal energy. So delta Q is equal to delta W. So here also what happens? The work will be that whatever may be the heat energy, that will be utilized only for doing work. Okay. The work done by the system in a cyclic process is equal to the heat absorbed by the system. And now we will discuss about molar specific heat capacities. So before that we will discuss which are the limitations of specific heat of a gas. Suppose the gas is suddenly compressed. If you are compressing the gas suddenly, what happens? Suddenly compressed means it will not get time to exchange heat energy between the system and surroundings. So delta Q is equal to 0. And we know that specific heat capacity is given by Q by M delta T. In the last chapter we discussed, or we can write C is equal to delta Q by M delta T. So here the system is not getting chance to exchange the heat energy. So delta Q is equal to 0. What will happen to specific heat capacity? Specific heat capacity is 0. And next case we are considering. If the gas is heated and allowed to expand such that the rise in temperature of the gas due to the heat supplied is equal to fall in temperature of the gas. But it means delta T is equal to 0. There is no variation in temperature. That is, we are providing heat energy, but it is by keeping the temperature constant, it expands. Okay. So what happens? Specific heat capacity is given by delta Q by M delta T. Delta Q is not 0, but delta T, there is no change in temperature. So what happens? C is equal to some quantity divided by 0. What you will get? Specific heat capacity became infinite. Okay. And third case, if the gas is heated and allowed to expand such that the fall in temperature of the gas due to expansion of the gas is less than the rise in temperature due to heat provided, which means delta T, if delta T is positive. If delta T is positive, in that case specific heat capacity, what it becomes? It will become positive quantity. And the last case, if the gas is heated and allowed to expand such that the fall in temperature of the gas due to the expansion of the gas is more than the rise in temperature due to heat supply, which means delta T, if delta T is negative, specific heat capacity will become negative also. Normally for solids, already we discussed, for solids and liquids its specific heat capacity value is fixed. But in the case of gases, we cannot specify, we cannot limit the specific heat capacity of the gas is this much value like that. Depending on the conditions, whether we are compressing it suddenly, whether isothermal expansion, adiabatic expansion, accordingly specific heat capacity will be changed. That's why whenever we are telling about the specific heat capacity of the gas, we have to specify under which condition we are telling about the specific heat capacity. Okay, is it clear? So in the case of gases, we are normally discussing about two principal specific heats of the gas, that is known as molar specific heat at constant volume. So by keeping the volume constant, if we are providing the heat energy, that is known as molar specific heat at constant volume. So how can we define that one? It is defined as the amount of heat required to raise the temperature of 1 mole of a gas through 1 degree Celsius at constant volume. By keeping the volume constant, we are taking 1 mole of the gas and we are providing heat energy, and if its temperature is increased by 1 degree Celsius, that heat energy is known as molar specific heat at constant volume, and it is represented as CV, C suffix V. Okay, C stands for specific heat capacity, V stands for it is molar specific heat capacity at constant volume. And now you can define, if it is next one, it is molar specific heat at constant pressure. So same way we can define, it is defined as the amount of heat required to raise the temperature of 1 mole of a gas through 1 degree Celsius at constant pressure. Okay, at constant pressure we are providing heat energy for 1 mole of the gas to increase its temperature by 1 degree Celsius. That heat energy is known as molar specific heat at constant pressure, and it is represented as Cp, C suffix P. And among these two, Cp is greater, Cv is lesser than Cp, or Cp is greater than Cv. Why? Because in the case of molar specific heat at constant volume, when we are providing the heat energy, that is completely utilized to increase its internal energy. Why? It is at constant volume, so no work is done. But in the case of molar specific heat at constant pressure, what happens? If you are providing heat energy to a system, that heat energy it will be utilized to both for both purposes. which are the purposes to increase its internal energy and to do work. So more heat energy will be given during molar specific heat at constant pressure. Okay, so we can say that Cp is greater than Cv. And now we are going to find a relation between Cp and Cv, and that relation is known as Mayer's relation between Cp and Cv. So that relation we are obtaining from first law of thermodynamics. We know that the first law of thermodynamics, it is given by delta Q is equal to delta U plus delta W. We are considering a gas which is enclosed in a cylinder fitted with a piston. So work done, we can write delta Q can be written as delta U plus P delta V. So at constant volume, delta V is equal to 0, delta Q is equal to delta U. So specific heat capacity, we can write it as delta Q by delta T. No, heat energy per delta Q by delta T at constant volume. So that can be written as delta U by delta T at constant volume, which is equal to Cv. No, so Cv can be written as delta U by delta T. How we are getting? Because this is, we are considering 1 mole of the gas. Okay. Now at constant pressure, we can write Cp, that is equal to delta Q by delta T at constant pressure. So that can be written as delta Q can be replaced as delta U plus P delta V whole by delta T. No, or we can write it as delta U by delta T plus P delta V by delta T. For here, no need to specify delta U by delta T. Already we told you internal energy depends only on the temperature. So it does not depend whether it is at constant volume or constant pressure. So delta U by delta T, instead of that we can write it as Cv. So we can write Cp is equal to Cv plus R, or Cp minus Cv is equal to R, and this relation is known as Mayer's relation. Okay, Cp is molar specific heat of the gas at constant pressure, Cv is molar specific heat gas at constant volume, and R is universal gas constant. Okay. And now we will discuss about few terms related to heat engine, not in detail. It is a device which converts continuously heat energy into mechanical energy. It is a device which converts heat energy into mechanical energy. The essential parts are a source is required. Source will be a heat reservoir at higher temperature. Okay, it is a heat reservoir at higher temperature, and it is supposed to have infinite thermal capacity. So what is meant by infinite thermal capacity? Means any amount of heat can be taken from it, then also its temperature remains same. That is known as infinite thermal capacity. And another one is sink. It is a heat reservoir at a lower temperature. Okay, it is a heat reservoir which is at a lower temperature. It is also having infinite thermal capacity. Means any amount of heat energy can be given to sink, then also its temperature remains same. Next is working substance. It is any material which performs mechanical work when heat is applied to it. When we are supplying heat, it can perform work. That is known as working substance. For example, in the case of diesel engine, a mixture of fuel, vapor and air is used as working substance, and in the case of steam engine, the steam is used as working substance. And these heat engines are all different types, internal combustion engine and external combustion engine, that we are not going to discuss. In the case of internal combustion engine, the heat energy will be developed inside itself. In the case of external combustion engine, heat energy required for the working substance will be developed outside. For example, steam engine is an external combustion engine and petrol or diesel engine is internal combustion engine. And the efficiency, how much it is good or efficient, that is represented by a term known as efficiency. So first of all, we'll see the diagram of a heat engine. So here already I told you there will be a higher temperature reservoir is there, that is known as hot reservoir, and another one that is known as source also. Source will be at a temperature T1. Then below you can see that there will be sink which is at a lower temperature T2, and working substance will be there. So what's the specialty? It takes Q1 amount of heat energy from the source and rejects Q2 amount of heat energy to sink, and a particular amount of work is done. So efficiency, we are writing it as, for anything efficiency can be written as output by input. So what is the output? Output is the work done. And what is the input? Input is the heat energy taken from the source. No. So that can be written as W by Q1. And what is W? W can be written as Q1 minus Q2. So Q1 minus Q2 by Q1, or efficiency can be written as 1 minus Q2 by Q1. Okay, that is the expression for the efficiency. Okay. Now we will discuss about second law of thermodynamics. What is meant by second law of thermodynamics? There are two statements are there. So first statement is known as Kelvin-Planck statement. It is impossible to construct an engine which will produce no effect other than extracting heat from a reservoir and performing an equivalent amount of work. So what it says, it is related to heat engine. What it says, we cannot construct an engine. Which type of engine we cannot construct? Which is producing no effect other than extracting heat from a reservoir. That is, it is taking heat from a reservoir and converting that complete heat energy into work. Or what happens, always some amount of heat energy will be rejected to the sink. Okay, is it clear? So this is related to the efficiency of a heat engine. The efficiency of the heat engine cannot become 100%. Always some amount of heat energy will be rejected to the sink. We cannot, that is, heat energy taken from the source cannot completely convert it into work. That what Kelvin-Planck statement says. We cannot convert complete heat energy which is taken from the source to work. There will be always some amount of heat energy will be rejected to the sink. That is Kelvin-Planck statement says. That is, it is impossible to construct an engine which will produce no effect other than extracting heat from a reservoir and performing an equivalent amount of work. So by this statement we can say that efficiency will not become 100%. Efficiency will become 100% if and only if but output is equal to input. No. So here always some amount of energy, heat energy is rejected to the sink. So efficiency will not become 100%. And next another statement is Clausius statement. That is also second law of thermodynamics. Okay. So what it says, it is impossible for a self-acting machine unaided by any external agency to transfer heat from a body to another at higher temperature. We know that heat energy always flows from higher temperature to lower temperature. Is it possible to transfer heat energy from a lower temperature to higher temperature? Yes, it is possible. This is what happens in a refrigerator, but that is possible only with the help of external agency. No, like that directly it will not flow. With the help of some external agency or with the help of some machine, we can extract heat energy from a cold body and can be given to a hot body. Otherwise directly it will not be possible. So it can be possible only with the help of some external agency. Okay. That is what is meant by Clausius statement says, it is impossible for a self-acting machine if unaided by an external agency. If no external agency is there, it is not possible to transfer heat from a body to another at a higher temperature. We cannot transfer heat from a body from lower temperature to higher temperature. We cannot directly transfer heat. That can be possible only with the help of some machine or some agency. This is related to refrigerator. Okay. So these are the two laws of second law of thermodynamics. Kelvin-Planck statement, it is related to heat engines, and Clausius statement related to refrigerator. Now we will discuss about reversible process. So from the word itself you might have got an idea, reversible. It is a process which can be made to proceed in the reverse direction by variation in its conditions, such that any change occurring in any part of the direct process is exactly reversed in the corresponding part of the reverse process is called a reversible process. A process which simple sentence we can say that a process which can be reversed is known as a reversible process. Okay. Which are the conditions for a reversible process? The process must be quasi-static. Quasi-static means the process should take place infinitesimally small, but very slow process. Okay, it should take place very slowly. That is what is meant by quasi-static. and dissipative forces should not be there. If dissipative forces are there, work done against dissipative forces cannot be get it back in the reversible process. Okay, if it comes back to its original position also, there will be always loss of energy. So dissipative forces such as viscosity, friction, inelasticity should be absent. Okay, so for reversible process we can say that very slow expansion, isothermal expansion of gas, ideal gas can be considered as reversible process. Okay, very slow, that is quasi-static expansion of ideal gas can be considered as reversible process. And finally, if it comes back to its original position, okay, quasi-static expansion and compression together can be considered as a reversible process. Naturally, an infinitesimal slow compression and expansion of an ideal gas at constant temperature can be considered as reversible process. Now, you might have got an idea how you can define an irreversible process, the process which cannot be reversed. Any process which cannot be retraced in the reverse direction exactly is called an irreversible process, which cannot be retraced. Any process which is occurring in nature is irreversible. Birth of human beings, and if you are taking an egg and if you are breaking that egg, what happens? Is it possible to get it back? No chance, no. So all the majority processes taking place in nature are irreversible process. Examples: diffusion of gases, dissolution of salt in water, rusting of iron, sudden expansion or contraction, not contraction of the gas, all those are examples of irreversible process. Any process which is taking place in nature are irreversible. Okay, we cannot retrace, we cannot get it back. Such type of process are known as irreversible process. So I hope all of you understood today what we discussed. So that chapter is over. In the next video we will discuss problems related to thermodynamics. Okay, thank you.